In this video, I'll be taking you through the journey of Ielts, and believe me, by the time you are done watching this video, you'll be able to have the full grasp and the full understanding of what Ielts entails. Because what I'm about to dish out to you has to do with an intense overview of Ielts. So, let us begin. Okay, so at this point, first thing first, the first thing you need to understand when it comes to this exam is, of course, to understand what the exam stands for. You have I, you have E, you have L, you have T, you have S. These are five initials representing some information. And the full meaning is actually International English Language Testing System. And that is for you to know that the exam is a system. And when you're talking about a system has to do with an approach that has been adopted for something to work out well. That is just the meaning of system, simply put. And now, this exam is a system. And it is a system that is meant to test, that is, to assess, to know how you are going to perform, to know your capacity. And it is not just an exam that is meant to test, not just a system that is meant to test, it is a system that is English language based. And not just a system that is English language based, it is also a test, a system that is internationally recognized. And that is why, irrespective of your academic background, probably you graduated from the Department of Mass Communication, you graduated from the Department of Biochemistry, irrespective of your academic discipline. As long as you are processing your traveling abroad, you're going to write this exam. And if you want to process permanent residence, definitely you're going to write this exam. Now, there is one reason that we are writing this exam. And should I tell you the reason? Can you guess? The exam is meant to test your communication ability. That is why you're writing this exam. The exam is meant to test your communication ability. You are traveling to a country whereby basically English is their first language, and you are coming from a country whereby English is not your first language, so there is need for them to assess your performance so that when you get to their country, you will be able to communicate with the people because they prioritize communication. Communication is very important because without you having what it takes to communicate, you may not be able to have the kind of expression you expect to have in this particular environment. And basically, when you're talking about communication, communication simply means passing of information from one person to another in a way that is acceptable and that is understood. That is actually the simple definition of communication. Now, try to imagine a situation whereby you understand a particular language and then you find yourself within a community whereby the people you have within that community do not even understand the language you are speaking. You are the only one who understands the language you speak. In that situation, it will be very difficult for you to communicate with the people there. Why? Because there is language problem. They cannot understand you, you cannot understand them. So that is why it is very important for them to assess your performance under this part so that you'll be able to have your free flow by the time you get to the country. And as it is, what you are going there for will determine the kind of band score you are going to have. There are some purposes that if you hold on to them, the kind of band score that will be required from you may not be that high. Probably you may just, maybe they may require something like 5.0 or 5.5 or maybe 6.0. It depends on what you intend to use that particular result for. And there are some situations whereby they have to demand for like 7, 7.5, 8.0. It also depends on what you want to use that particular result for. Now, when it comes to this particular part, you get to realize something, that this IELTS is divided into four different parts. For example, what I'm doing at the moment is that I'm speaking. And as I'm speaking to you, what are you doing? You are listening to what I am saying. And if I should ask you any question, you would respond. Why? Because you you understood what I said and you will give your response. So if I'm doing the speaking, you will do the listening and then you will do the response. And at the same time, if I choose not to communicate my ideas to you, if I choose not to have my expression via speaking, I may decide that I want to express myself via writing. And if I should have writing, maybe whatever it is I want to pass to you, I have decided to put on writing and then I've given to you. For you to understand the content, what will you do? You have to read. And by the time you read, you understand and you also give your response. So, in the context of communication, the people that belong to this part are called the encoders. And the people you have here are decoders. That is, when you speak, you are trying to pass information. When you write, you are also trying to pass information. But this one is verbal, while this one is textual. The same thing applies to this. When someone speaks, you listen, and then when someone writes, you read. And that is why basically these are the four major areas of human communication. And that is why the exam is centered on these four basic parts to let you know that the reason for the exam in the first place is to assess your communication ability. So they can't just give you pass. And that is why it is so this exam is so important that you have to pass. It forms the major ticket for you to move from where you are to where you want to be. Any attempt for you to move into another country without the exam is just like you have the response. IELTS will just say, you shall not pass. And that is final. So it is very important. You having success in this area gives you a very big solace. Now, let me begin to give you some very important hints that will help you when it comes to this exam. Of all these four parts, of all these four areas, these two parts, the speaking part and the writing part, they are parts that are like independent independent tasks or independent exercises. But what you have here, they are like integrated tasks or exercises. And how do I mean? Now, this part of IELTS, especially the speaking part, under the speaking part is a part that you get to have 20 minutes. So, this is the part that wants to investigate your ability to respond to questions, your ability to communicate your ideas when it comes to responding to certain questions. And whatever part you have here, they are divided into three different parts. You have the first part, you have the second part, you have the third part. So the combination of all these different parts make up this particular section, and you spend 20 minutes. This particular part is actually the part whereby your ability to communicate your idea via writing is tested. And I want to say, getting to this part, you don't need to trouble yourself. You don't even need to worry. Why? Because I believe that if you can imagine, some people believe that they cannot write, but that is not true. Everybody can write, but it's just because everybody has not attempted to write. That is why it appears difficult. Everybody can write. In fact, if you can imagine within yourself and you can create that imagination for yourself using English language, definitely you'll be able to write. All you need is just to bring out the same content you are thinking in your mind. Just put them into writing, and then you have writing. We are still going to have more information about that. So back to this. You need to understand something. Talking about these two parts, I said these two parts, they are like independent tasks or exercises. How do I mean? To be independent means to be free. You have liberty. These two parts, the speaking part and the writing part, they are parts that what you need majorly to pass these two parts is actually ability to be creative. You have to be creative. As long as you are creative, you can't have problems with these two parts. To be creative in the sense that when they ask you a particular question, they don't have a precise answer. The examiners do not have a particular answer that this is what you must say. They will just give you the question. By the time they give you the question, you need to rely on your ability to think and to be creative and to present whatever it is they have given you. The same thing applies to this part. When they ask you a question under this part, they will tell you to write something about something, give information or give details about a particular thing that they have given you. They will give you the question because this part is divided into two. You have the writing task 1, and then you have the writing task 2. So both tasks will present some things to you that you should write about. So you have to rely on your creative instinct to generate your answers. And that is because they don't have a precise answer that you should have when you are giving your response. And not just that, under this part, because this exam, by the time you are done watching this video, you get to realize that this exam is even easy to pass. And that is true. The exam is very easy to pass as long as you stick to certain things that are very necessary. And these are the things that I want to show you so that you understand and then you have the full grasp of what I am trying to convey. No matter, because they are part that deal with creativity, no matter how bad your English is, actually, if your English is so bad to the point that your subject verb agreement, the use of your grammar is not that intact, you make mistakes, you make grammatical blunders at one point and at another point, like that, to the point that your flow is not that fluent when it comes to speaking. But because you have been able to say one or two things, you may not have anything lesser than 5.0. And that is why, if you have seen anybody's result before, you discover that it is very rare for you to see the result of anyone going below 5.5 under the speaking part. As long as that person opens his or her mouth to say one or two things in relation to the questions that have been asked, even if that person did not give all the full details, but at least the person is able to respond to a point, or even if all the responses to the questions were short, the person will still be given some marks because the person has used his or her creativity. And what they do majorly under this part is they reward your creativity, no matter how minute it could be. And that is why it may be hard for you to see anyone scoring anything lesser than 5.0. The same thing applies to the writing part. And at the same time, no matter how good you are, this is not to try to discourage you, but I'm just giving you the hint that you understand, the hint that will help you. And one thing, it may be very rare for you to see someone who will score 9.0 here and 9.0. Believe me, I am not saying that it is not possible, but it may be very rare. Even the so-called super brilliant ones, out of 10, it is rare for you to see like maybe one, to see like two or three. And that is actually not because they don't have what it takes to have 9.0 here, 9.0 here, but due to one or two lapses And when you have those one or two lapses, it's going to drain your score a bit. So that is why the most common highest band score that you can have, that you can see people have under these two parts, could be 8.5, 8.5. We have had people with 8.5. And now, why do you think that has been? It's actually because of one thing. And what is that thing? It's actually because when it comes to this part, as I've said, it has to do with creativity. Creativity has to do with art. Creativity has to do with art. And there is something they normally say about art, and that is there is no work of art that is perfect. There is no work of art that is perfect. For example, this marker that I'm holding currently is a product of art. Somebody created this idea. The wristwatch I have on is a product of art. Whatever it is you see, as long as it has come out of the creative instinct of someone, it is art. And if they could say that no work of art is perfect, it means that there are situations whereby one of the things that will be causing people not to have something like this is probably when you are writing and then you may want to write something like recommend. This is the spelling of recommend. But by the time you want to write, probably because you are under exam tension, you now begin to think that recommend, does it have double M and double C single M, or it has double C and double M, or it has two C's and one M, or like that. By the time you just feel like, let me go with this one, this is this is an error, and this will be counted against you. Now, by the time you have this, you have another one somewhere. You have another one somewhere. You have up to like five, six, seven errors like that. It creates imperfection into your work. And with that pattern of writing, you cannot have nine. It will drop because that writing is not perfect because of all those one or two errors that you have. So by the time you settle for something like that, then you get that result. And this thing is just like all these films that we'll watch. By the time you watch a film, before a film can even be released for people to download or for people to have access to, it could take up to like 3, 4, 5 years. Some films even take more than that before the public will have access to them. And by the time the public eventually gain access, after watching the movie, you still see some people feeling like, eh, this film, I'll just give this film 6/10. Whereas a lot of money before that time had been invested into that movie production, a lot of stress, a lot of activities. And the people that released the film, they knew that, at this point, yes, this film has already attained perfection, the level that we want. Only for some people who are critics to watch the movies and then to see that oh, there are certain mistakes, something like that. Exactly, that is the way it is. By the time you are done writing, you feel like, yes, I've written something. I should have nothing less than 8, only for you to see that, how come I'm having 6? How come I'm having 6.5? How have they even marked this thing? I'm going to apply for a mark. You apply for a mark only for you to see that your mark did not even increase eventually. So these are some of the things that are causing this. When you have one or two mistakes, when you do not have good paragraphing, when you do not have good punctuation, when you have problem with subject-verb agreement, when you have problem of using past tense, when you have to use present tense in your speaking, in your writing. So by the time you have all these lapses, in your mind, you give the right words. In your mind, you give the right the right content only for the examiners to read, and then they say that this part and this part. So that is why, but no matter the situation, they will still reward your creativity, just that you may not have that very level 9 9. For you to have 9.0 here and 9.0 here, it means you are operating at the dimension of artistic sublimity, the level of your artistry when it comes to writing and speaking is very, very, is operating at that sublime level. Perfect. But due to one reason or the other, you may not, I'm not saying you cannot operate at that level. You may not get to that level because of all these factors, not because of your ability. Because at times, you may even want to have something like something may recommend. In your mind, you pressed space bar. You could forget to press the space bar. And by the time you do not have it in mind, the thing will combine. So you now have something like this. Instead of may recommend, may space recommend, you forgot. And then you have another area, and then you have another like that. By the time you have all these things, so all these things combined will just drain your score a bit. And that is why you have this. So, but no matter the situation, these two parts are very, very easy to pass because you just follow the pattern and you get to understand how it's going to be like. Now, when it comes to these two parts, the listening part and the reading part. Now, this listening part and the reading part, they are integrated tasks in the sense that everything you need as answers to the questions you have here and here, all the answers you need are embedded in the content that they have given you. The listening part is the part that involves you listening to a number of audios, and then questions will be asked based on the content of the audios you have listened to. So you are picking your answers from the content of the audios you have listened to. So not as if you want to generate your answer outside the scope of what they have given you. So all the answers you need are integrated into the content they have given to you to use to answer whatever questions you want to answer. So that is why they are integrated tasks or integrated exercises. You don't need to think outside the box. Unlike these two, you have to think outside the box. Bring out your own creativity to address the question. But this, you make use of what they have given you to answer the questions here. And that is why under these two parts, it is very, very possible to have 9.0 and 9.0. Probably you have seen people with 9.0. I have seen 9.0 in this part. For you to have 9.0, 9.0, it is very possible. And that is because the answers are precise. If the answer to a particular question is A, if you choose A, you get it. If the answer to a particular question is bench, and you put down bench, you get it. So there is no, even if what you did was guesswork. I did not hear this part very well. Probably, I think I heard bench. And if you put down bench, you're going to get your answer. Why? Because the answers are precise, not like this one. And because of the nature of these two parts, what you need majorly to pass these two parts is actually intense concentration. Concentration. This part has nothing to do with I am brilliant. In fact, this exam does not bow to people that graduated with first class in their first degree. It has nothing to do with that. In fact, if you are a first class graduate and when it comes to writing this exam, you don't have 100% concentration, it will shock you what you will have because it has to do with concentration, ability to stay calm. Because this part is the part that will assess, it will assess your ability to audibly perceive information well and to respond to that information. This is the part whereby as you are listening to the content, you are also typing your answers or you are choosing your answers. And that is why you need concentration because you are doing two things at the same time. You are listening and then you are typing or you are clicking whatever answers that particular part needs. And if you lose concentration, these are parts that it is possible for you to have 4.0, 4.0. I know you don't aspire to have something like that. Yes, you cannot have something like that. Yes, you can possibly have something as low as 4.0. That is if you don't understand. You don't even your concentration is not steered towards what you are reading or what you are listening to. So that is for the listening part. Even for the reading part, you get to realize that, under this reading, they give you passages, 3 passages, basically. 3 passages. And then by the time you have these 3 passages, you read through and then you answer the questions that follow. They are just like the normal comprehension passages we have always been used to answering. You have your questions, you have your passage, and then you answer all the questions that pertain to whatever reading passage they have given you. Now, altogether, you're going to have, for the speaking, as I've said, you have only 20 minutes. You're done. For the listening part, you have 30 minutes. You have 30 minutes for the listening part, and you get to have 40 questions. 30 minutes, 40 questions. And for the reading part, you get to have 1 hour. You have 1 hour for the reading part, and you also have 40 questions under the reading part. And for the final part, which is the writing part, you also have 1 hour to spend answering whatever questions they have given to you. Under this writing part, you have 2 parts, both for general training and academic training. So that is just that about that. Okay, at this point, I'm going to have my stop, and I want to believe that you have understood 1 or 2 things when it comes to this IELTS, and then you'll be able to navigate your way when it comes to handling this exam, especially for you to have something higher. And everything I've said so far, for those of you that could be afraid of the exam, this is just to let you know that the exam is just normal exam. So this information, I believe, has helped you to a point to understand how this exam really works. So see you in my next video.